Welcome guys back to another lecture in our how to use color in color level design section. So we looked at and talked about how color layouts work. We also talked about how glyphs and neutrals work alongside our color layouts. So in this little lecture, I'm going to be just discussing how to use two different types of color identifiers. So I'm going to be talking about their common use in games and the message they deliver. Now, many games use this classic setup of two factions against each other. In two-player games, the use of two mutually exclusive glyphs help identify teams, even using glyphs to represent territory. So an example of this would probably be World of Warcraft, where blue represents one faction and red represents the other faction. Now I could ask you guys which of the factions would be considered the bad guys and which would be considered the good guys, but I know you guys are smart enough to know due to the attention you've paid to this entire course in terms of what blue means and what red means. So I won't have to go too much into that. So what is the message that they deliver? Well, sometimes two identifiers can drive a symbolic and emotional meaning. Good versus evil. Different types of powers. And the best way to represent this is by choosing two colors as opposite as possible to each other. So this would probably be complementary colors. Complementary color scheme using for two color identifiers would be the most ideal way to use that color scheme effectively. And obviously there's different types of color schemes that could be associated with this, but complementary would most probably be the most effective one. Now, the best practice is by using warm versus cool colors. So red and blues are the most used for this contrast. So good and evil, red and blue are most probably the most used. So P to P, considering we're looking at our graph. But red versus green and blue versus orange could work well as well. These are also two different types of complementary colors that also make sense as well. Looking at our examples on our right, where we have blue and orange as in Portal, and even blue and green, red and green, as in Mario, where red would be the mushroom that helps you get a bit bigger, and green being the one that gives you life. So a warm primary color versus a cold secondary color works well as well. So now when we're choosing two different types of color identifiers, it's always good to know that a warm primary versus cold secondary works well, or even a cold primary with a warm secondary. So looking at how this works, guys, keep in mind that when you want to choose your two different types of color identifiers, that you must also use them in association with how glyphs and neutrals work in your color layout. Don't go crazy and start using red all over the place or using blue to showcase, different types of emotions in a certain gameplay. Make sure that you have your identifiers strictly laid out for your glyphs, and then start creating your neutrals to support those two identifiers. And that's it, guys, for this lecture, and I'll see you guys in the next one.